Oh, hello there guys! What am I doing, do you ask? Well, I'm most certainly not copying recipes from the Tyler Mengel blog. Hello fellow Heroes of the Blue, and welcome to my channel, and also welcome to another Heavy Contrast tutorial. Heavy Contrast is a series where I try to paint one miniature to the highest standard possible using just contrast paints and highlights. And for this episode I'm going to paint one of the Cruel Boys, Hobgrot. So, let's get cracking. As you can see, we're starting from a base coat of sandry dust spray, and my first step will be to layer a mix of 1 part skeleton hard and 2 parts contrast medium over all the skin. I'm going to try to avoid especially the leather bits, the ropes that he has, these ropey red things. All of that I'm going to try and avoid. If you hit it, you can just relay it using sandry dust base paint, but try to avoid it if you can. It will save you a lot of time later on. While that dries, I'm going to base coat his little pants that he has just behind all these ropes and everything. I want to base coat them now because I will do the ropes later on, and if I have to fix something, it's easier now. So this is a 1-to-1 mix of Psycho Brown and contrast medium. This is a tiny detail, but it's very easy to miss it, so be sure that you pick it up now. Our layer of skeleton hole is mostly dry, but before adding highlights and all of that to the skin, I'm going to base coat a couple more details. I'm going to start with this twisty ropes here that are painted red. On the box art I'm going to do the same. I'm going to use Blood Angels Red over those ropes. With the detail picked out, I'm going to pick up these straight ropes that he has around his body too, and I'm going to use the Garros Dunes for this. And I will probably do 2 or 3 layers of this until I have a darker robe. But this is the exact tone that I want, I just need more of it, so I'm going to do a couple of layers. In the end I added 2 coats of Garros Dunes to the ropes, and I'm very happy with it. And while I was doing it, I realized that the skin may need a little bit more of contrast, so I'm going to take Garros Dunes again, and I'm just going to apply it as a richer shade where I feel like it. So for example here, very slight application of this. Don't go overboard, but this will add a lot more definition. So with that extra shading applied, I'm going to start highlighting all the skin. For this I'm going to start by using a mix of 1 part Ushabti bone and 3 parts Hobgrot hide. And I'm just going to apply this mix towards the upper side of each muscle. Just so you see how thick my paint is, I almost forgot about this. It's quite thick. So this is basically layering at this point, but I'm still moving my brush in the direction I want the highlights to be, because that will leave more paint there and it will be more opaque and thus create a slight gradient still, even if the paint is this thick. This mix is quite transparent, so this works in our advantage. With that highlight done, I'm going to move into the next one. This will be a sharp bone, and I'm just going to do a heavy glaze sort of highlight like this. You can see it moves from transparent to opaque, and I'm going to apply this in the same fashion as I did the other one, and also adding a bit of edge highlight here and there. With that highlight, we have our skin values now established, but the hue is not perfect, and that's intentional because it's very easy to highlight with those colors, but it's a bit trickier with more yellowy tones. I intentionally painted this just in rough values of ochres, and now I'm going to tint it to get that very nice yellow skin. For this I'm going to use Direct Yellow. I have it thinned down with contrast medium to a sort of a glaze, and you can see how thin this is here. There is no ratios here. You need to have this kind of thin glaze, and I'm going to apply this as a filter over the skin. I don't want this pooling anywhere. I just want this yellowy tone appearing all over the skin. I might need to do a couple layers of this. It's easier to thin down more and apply a second one than it is to go overboard and then need to repaint it because you don't like it. So I prefer to go slowly and building this up as I go. Those glazes are done, and I ended up doing 2 layers of the Direct Yellow glaze, and I'm very happy with how this is looking. But I'm going to add a couple more tones to the skin before I do the final highlight. And I'm going to start with Volupus Pink. I have Volupus Pink thinned down. You can see it there, very thin. I thin it down with contrast medium. And I'm just going to apply this to all the veins. Things like the underlip, the nose. And any scars that he has around his body. Also, I'm going to apply this on the elbows, knees, etc. With that Volupus Pink glaze, our skin is looking now fantastic, and I'm going to apply the last tone before starting with my highlight, and this will be Ethermatic Blue. This is straight out of the pot, and I'm going to apply this on the backs under his eyes. Now that we have everything with the hues that we want, I'm going to start re-highlighting, because of course with those glazes we have lost our highlight. So I'm going back to Sharp Bone, and I'm just going to start highlighting this again. I'm picking up the scars, doing little dots. I will also pick up the muscles as we did before. This time I'm just going to do a smaller highlight. With that Sharpty Bone highlight, our skin is looking fantastic, and I'm just going to do the very last step here, and that's just to add a teeny tiny bit more light, and for this I'm going to use Palette Witch Flesh, and just going to be very careful with this, just small dots here and there, especially on his face. Face is basically the most important part, so I'm going to concentrate those dots there. But I'm also going to add them into parts like the knees. With the skin now completely finished, I'm going to paint his claws and his teeth. And this will be black, but I need to start with a grey tone, so I'm going to paint them using Grey Seer. The grey seer is still drying, so I'm going to take that time to paint his eyes, and for this I just had them highlighted using Sharpty Bone when I highlighted the rest of the skin, and just going to do a layer of Blood Angel's red on top. And with that done, I'm going to take Black Templar and I'm going to paint the claws and the teeth. With that layer of Black Templar finished, I'm going to highlight the teeth and the claws using Grey Seer again. And I'm just going to do a line at each side. And I'm going to do a dot of this just at the bottom. And with that highlight done, I'm going to do a last one. This will be just on the bigger teeth and claws, and this will be a 1-to-1 mix of Grey Seer and pure white. Now I'm just going to do a very small dot of this right at the top. With all that done, I'm going to move into the other base coated details. I'm going to start with the red ropes, and for this I'm going to highlight them using a 1-to-1 mix of Angor Flesh and Squeak Orange. And just picking up the texture of the ropes. It's a bit annoying to do, but shouldn't be too difficult. And now I'm going to move into a mix of 2 parts Angor Flesh and 1 part Squeak Orange. And I'm just going to paint this into the upper facing parts of the rope. You can basically skip this step if you look at the box art. The Heavy Metal team only did 1 highlight on these ropes, but I just cannot resist myself. With that done, I'm going to move into the brown ropes, and for this I'm going to start highlighting and using Baylor Brown. And for the second highlight, I'm going to use Karak stone. Just going to do very small dots of Karak stone. I chose Karak stone because it's a very desaturated brown, and I want this to separate a bit more from the extremely saturated skin. With all of the way, there is only just one detail left to paint that is base coated. This is this dark leather. I'm going to use Baneblade Brown to highlight it. This is a very small area, so going this harsh is not an issue. Just going to do a small edge highlight there, and I'm going to do an edge highlight here on the leather wrapping on the dagger. With all that done, there's only just one type of detail left to paint, and these are all the metallic bits. And he has 3 types of metallic details, that's 1 copper and 2 different types of steel. And I'm going to start by coating the copper. For this I'm going to use Screaming Bell. Don't forget to also do the pommels on his weapons. And the cross guards, or the upper part of the handle. And for the steel, I'm going to use Iron Hand Steel. I'm going to use this to base coat both tones of metallic steel. The blue steel, which is done for the armor, and the weapons will be regular steel. With all those base coats done, I'm going to start shading all the blue steel details, and for this I'm going to use a mix of 1 part Black Templar and 3 parts Griff Charger Grey. As you can see, I'm just going to layer this all over those details. And I'm going to do 2 layers of this, just to get to the darkness level that I want. With the first layer on the armor now dry, and I'm going to do the blades on the weapons, and for this I'm going to take a mix of 1 part Black Temper and 1 part Contrast Medium, and what I'm going to do is a TMM pattern. So I will apply this to one side, I will clean my brush very quickly, and then I will feather it out. You will see it. And I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. And I will also use this mix to recess shade any parts on the grenade. Our second layer of the Black Templar and Griff Charger Grey mix is now applied over the armor and is still drying, and I'm going to take this time to start painting the copper details. And for this, before applying any shading, I'm going to do a pre-highlight. This is a 1-to-1 mix of Stonehouse Silver and Screaming Bell. I'm going to apply this to the upper sections of each of the copper details, just like that. And you can feather it out to blend it with the Screaming Bell back color. That first highlight on the copper details is now done. Now I'm going to shade them, but I'm not going to apply an all over shade because that will mess up and darken them too much. I'm just going to do a recess shade. And the reason I applied the highlight first is that now I can correct any mistakes. For example, if the highlight went where it shouldn't, this will fix it very nicely. With all that done, I'm going to start highlighting all the steel details, and I'm going to start by using Iron Hand Steel, and I'm going to do a very thin edge highlight on all the blue steel details. I also going to use iron hand steel to tidy up any of the TMM surfaces if I went over from the other side, for example. And also a small edge highlight here as well. And now for the final step on this little guy, I'm going to do a final highlight on all the metallics using Stormhost silver. This will be, of course, copper, the weapons, and for the dark steel bits I'm just going to do small dots of this in the very corners, and he has a lot of corners. And with that last step done and the base painted, our little Hobgrot is finished, and I'm really happy with how he turned up. This was a real pleasure to paint, and I must say that the new Cruel Boy range is pretty awesome from a painter's perspective. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Do you like my videos and want to help me make them? Well, there are several ways you can do that. You can follow me on social media. You have the links to all my social media in the description below. You can also check all my affiliate links in the pinned comment of this video. Use those links in your next hobby purchase and help me without any additional cost to you. Don't forget to check the merch that you can see just below this video in the shop tab of my channel, but most importantly there is Patreon channel members. You have the link to my Patreon in the description below and in the pinned comment of the video, or if you prefer it, you can just click the join button below this video. Patreon channel members help me do all the cool projects that I want to make and help me improve the quality of my videos. Don't be afraid, no content will ever be hidden behind a paywall, but it's a nice way to help me. You will get something back for your generosity. That's it guys, thank you very much for watching. A special thank you to Keder Amstel, Sigismundi, Nicolas Fernal, Brian Bledsoe, LMAP Limited, Tyrannosaur, Christoph Moret, Javi Mota, Kim Anderson, Michael Boyer, EAVY Miniatures, Thomas Ustergaard, Beldrain, Victor Domen, Arundel, Carlos Rivera, Charles Armintas, Chris Fivey, Kieran Omurtha, Darcy Farrar, Dr. V, Gareth Smith, George Royce, G-Force, Jamie Milligan, Josh Simpson, JT Butler, Kevin Mian, Kevin Suller, Leonard Lindemann, Mark Jarvis, Natius Maximus, Juan Brastock Better, Oscar Jonathan Thornberg, Samuel Sasha Park, and Tasted for being the coolest persons in the planet. Be like these fine folks on my Patreon and take control.